Hi, it's Dr. Brian McDonough, and welcome to another edition of the Dr. Brian McDonough Show. I have a special guest, John Matthews. He is the founder of a nonprofit. We'll talk about that in a moment. He is a teacher at Temple. He started a tech company. And I'm going to start with a great question, which I think a lot of people would ask anybody who did this. You rode your bike across the country. Why? Why does someone ride their bicycle across the country?
Brian, my mother, I made a promise to my mom. Mom had been diagnosed with lung cancer 6 years earlier. And while she was sick, I promised her I would do something about it. Our family had learned so many statistics about lung cancer, about it being the number one cancer killer in the world, in every state in this country, for men, for women, no demographic mattered, and the lack of funding and the stigma. We experienced the idea that the first question you're always asked was did she smoke? So when mom was sick, I told her I would do something. Eventually, I said I'm going to ride my bike across the country. My wife thought I was nuts, but with her help and lots of other people's help, I did that in 2017.
So when you did that, when you took your bike and went across the country, had you started the nonprofit at that point? Was it even in your mind, or were you thinking this would be a good fundraising opportunity? What was behind it from the standpoint, obviously, out of respect to your mom?
Yeah, there was a nonprofit that I had gotten to know very well who had supported lung cancer patients. And the first couple of years we did these rides. The first one was across the country was to raise money for them. They do wonderful work for research as well as providing education to patients. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get to a nonprofit, but sure enough, 2 years later, as we got started, we felt as a board that what we wanted to do, we wanted to help local patients, people who are dealing with lung cancer today, and the challenges that they face. And so we changed our dynamic away from research, but more towards helping people at places to, initially was Fox Chase and Temple, but helping their patients who are struggling with things, Brian, as basic as I need to get an appointment. I need to get to my appointment and I need an Uber ride or a Lyft ride, or I need to make a decision on whether I can pay for a utility or I need a wig. And so we partnered first with Temple and with Fox Chase, and it's been a wonderful partnership with the two of them since then.
And tell me a little bit about the nonprofit and ways people can get involved if they want to know about the name and also how they could reach you or reach someone at the nonprofit.
Sure. The name of the nonprofit is Ride Hard, Breathe Easy. Obviously, the origin is from that crazy bike ride across the country. You can reach us at rhbe.org. I'm at John at rhbe.org. That's JOHN, or info at rhbe.org. And people help in a lot of ways. We just even last week we had an event at Morris Arboretum where we raised over $50,000 with an auction and 125 people. So we'll do that. We'll do another ride later this year. So if there's people who want to do shorter rides, 20 miles, for instance, or longer rides, we'll be doing a 5-day ride this year. And we'll have, 8 to 12 people who will join us. They'll do their part. They'll ride. They'll raise some money with us. And of course, like any nonprofit, we have dozens of people that are doing a thing here and a thing there, whether it's around the website, whether it's around communication, whether it's running an event or organizing or figuring out work that needs to be done. Brian, my mother had an amazing saying. I'm one of 6 kids. And my mom had a wonderful saying growing up, which was many hands make light work. And it's become a mantra within our nonprofit where we have so many people who are doing their small piece and some doing bigger pieces to make a difference to lung cancer patients in this area.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, and again, I'm sorry for the loss of your mom and what she had to go through, and yet through her life and what you're doing, does it make sense of it in some way that you're helping so many other people?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I thought about that idea a lot, which is the two saddest days of my life was hearing the words that mom had lung cancer, and secondly, it was almost 5 years later when my dad died suddenly of a heart attack. But with moms, it's brought me so much some of the work since then has brought so much joy, not just to me, but I have nieces, I have nephews, I have friends, I have many, many new friends out of this who I've met going through this. People at Fox Chase, at Temple, and each of our partners, whether it's Dartmouth or Duke or Crozier or Einstein or Lung Health Services, all these organizations are helping lung cancer patients. And I've met some of the most remarkable people in my life by just going down this journey and keeping this very open approach to who wants to be involved, who wants to help, what new ideas do we get, and we've helped hundreds and hundreds of people to make their life a little bit easier.
One thing I wanted to ask you about is, as you do this, you get a chance, like you mentioned, some major medical institutions, not just Philadelphia, but around the country. Um, when you do that, do you get any input on or get to see how the money's been used and how it's helped other people? Do you get a chance to see that?
We hear directly from each of our partners, and frankly, it's twice a year they give us their report card. Here's the people that we've helped, the number of people we helped. It's obviously it's very secure with HIPAA and other things that we have no idea who the people are we're helping, but we know through our partners that they'll tell us how we've helped them. And one of the quotes from a patient at Temple was, "You all saved my life by providing me with a way to my appointment." Because people are literally making choices. Can I go to my appointment? Do I have enough money? Can I get there? With gas prices going up, can I actually get there? Can someone take time off from work to get me there? And so we've heard dozens and dozens of quotes coming back from our partners, both from them as well as their patients. And the difference we're making is, as one person said, the relief you see in their eyes. From a woman from Fox Chase said, it's palpable. And so we know we're making a difference, and we're delighted to do it.
And I'm sure everyone needs support in so many ways. Are you able to help out people who really would have no other financial way to deal with it too? Is that an opportunity with what you're doing?
Exactly. What we do is we turn over all of that vetting and looking at it to the hospitals. They have social services programs, and they have people who are professionals and experienced at not understanding the challenges that their patients are feeling, and they decide whether is this the right one. People who can use the help. And so all we hear is later on, we help this number of people. Here's how we help them. Here's how much we've spent, and we know that we're making a difference in this community.
I asked you a lot of questions, but what didn't I ask that you want to talk about that you think is important?
You know, there's a lack of understanding about lung cancer. When you hear it, the first thing people think about is is smoking. When my mom was sick, that was the first question I was asked. Did she smoke? And I've met people, literally who have said, uh, I don't tell people I have lung cancer because I don't get the sympathy, because people feel that you've done it to yourself. And here's a statistic that almost 25% of the people who are diagnosed with lung cancer have never smoked. And in fact, in Asia, over 80% of women, 80% of women who are diagnosed today with lung cancer have never smoked. So absolutely smoking has an impact. And my mom did a little bit of smoking. She didn't smoke much. And frankly, she hadn't smoked in 30 years, Brian. But 30 years later, here we find that she is dealing with lung cancer. And our family we were, saddened by it. Over time, frankly, I got angry about it because of the stigma that's associated with it, the lack of funding, and even the lack of standard medical care. If you think of the common cancers, it's prostate. Well, at a certain age, you get a test. There's breast cancer, which is very common. Well, at a certain age, you get a test. There's colon cancer. Certain age, you get a test, but there's a test available for lung cancer, and people don't get it. It's a low dose CT scan, and
Mhm.
it's not part of standard care. And what's so devastating is if you're found in stage one with lung cancer, Think about this. Stage one, you have a 55% chance of living until you're living 5 years, 55%. And yet, if it's stage four, it's 6%. And the test is out there, but it's not common practice. It's not what doctors normally do because it's not part of standard practice, which I think it drives me nuts.
Oh, well, there, as you know, I'm sure the USPSTF, there are recommendations for smokers who smoke so many years at a certain age to get it.
Yeah,
But to your point, if you're a non-smoker, that recommendation isn't there because you didn't smoke, and they're looking at. I know, how USPSTF is. They
yeah,
look at cost, benefit, society, all those things. But to your point, you're right. It is something that you need to detect early. So, by the way, for people who are watching, talk to your doctor about it. Regardless, if you're a smoker, definitely talk to your doctor about it. But I think you also
yeah,
bring up a very important point, John, and I think that is that whatever somebody has. No one should play God or put a stigma on people for what they have. If you're sick, if you have something, you need to be taken care of, and whatever it is, whatever led to it, we see that with opioids, we see it with other things, and you're like, wait a minute, people need help, and I think that's important. But what you're doing is amazing. I still, were you a bike rider before you did this, or did you just say I'm just gonna? Because it sounds like your wife was kind of like, what are you doing? Because I couldn't conceive, but if I ride a bike, around the beach or something, I'm exhausted out. How you did it?
I did a little bit of cycling. I've done some running in the past, so I've run a few marathons. So I know if I want to be committed to do something, I'll do it. And I'd done a couple of rides down the shore, the MS 150 or a cancer ride, and I just felt, hey, if I can do 70 miles, I can do it for 7 weeks. Just hop on the bike and keep going at it. So it was the help of a ton of people. I had to go buy a bike. I had an old bike, 12 years old. So Guys Bicycles is a place that they helped me so much. I had people figuring out the route. I had people figuring out. My wife got me in touch with a nutritionist to make sure you eat right. And there were so many people. As I said, there was literally dozens of people who were involved to help me, you know, realize a dream that was a commitment that I made in passing to my mom. She was a week before she died. I said, Mom, I'm going to do something. I
Mhm.
had no idea what it would be, but eventually it morphed into raising money and doing a bike ride. And here we are 6 years later. We're closing in on $800,000 raised, and we have so much more we want to do.
Well, it's amazing work. And John Matthews, thank you for joining me on the Dr. Brian McDonough show. Not only is your story inspirational, but I think it's also very important because it's helping a lot of people. So thanks for taking the time to be on the show.
Well, it's my pleasure, Brian. Good to talk with you.